did it together. Oh, Jason took Steve's position. Oh, okay. Works for me.
I always
Yeah, I know.
sat in the center here, that's where the officers sat, but I think we're all.
Whatever works.
I'll comment about it before we're done.
Whatever works.
It don't matter.
No.
No, that's
So I found this in my mailbox.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice. That'll work out.
I had a chance to read it. Confirming all of the stage advice.
Oh,
It helps
you haven't
to
learned
have done
shorthand
this
yet?
once or twice.
they wouldn't, you know what,
Yeah.
it's so funny, I wanted to take shorthand in high school, and they wouldn't let me take it because I didn't hook.
We got a copy.
Yeah, weird.
John dropped this off.
'Cause I
Victor
kept-
Township Senior.
It was weird,
Oh, okay.
but that's what I was told. All right, let me do the updated one, and we will do away with the. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Here, I got it. God, it's so good to see people sitting.
Hey, you did like
Did you get out now?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. Glad Julie let you out.
Didn't, I love this. This looks really good. I hope he keeps it.
Give that girl, get my glasses.
You haven't seen it for a year and a half?
That's. Action. Okay.
Hey, Al,
How you doing?
living the dream.
Yes, I understand that.
Oh my God, it is after 6. Sorry about that. And the lefty shoes. Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. It's 1 minute after 6, which I was reminded, it is so good to see you guys. It really is. It's awesome to have you here. Okay, we are going, apparently we have a new agenda, which I just received. It's an updated one. And we're gonna call to order, obviously, which we did. We're going to have a roll call.
Ms. Howe?
Oh, here. I'm sorry.
Ms. Butler Challenger? Here. Mr. Wiswasser?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Elmarigi?
Here.
Mr. Benzie?
Here.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Here.
All right, thank you. Now, we're gonna change, before on Zoom, everybody sat down, pledge allegiance, and we did it individually. We're gonna stand, do pledge of allegiance to the flag, but it isn't going to be just me, it's gonna be all of us, because that's the way we did it prior to Zoom. So we are going back to the old way of doing it, so board, well, anybody can stand, sure. Good man, sorry, Paula. Hand over heart. I pledge allegiance. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you all. We have approval of the agenda, and I assume there's some changes, because I know I have one, so I assumed everybody else did. There are no changes?
We need to pull the, which we typically do, we need to pull the township board minutes off. I have a correction that needs to be made.
Okay. All right. Let me do township minutes. You want to, when you say pull them, you want to,
I wanna make sure we talk about it, so
Oh.
we state what
Okay,
got
so you wanna-
stated in the meeting, because they don't reflect what got stated in the meeting,
Okay.
in the treasurer's report at the last township board meeting.
okay, so what you're looking for is a discussion.
That's, you can have discussion, but they're gonna correct the minutes, what I said.
Okay, that's, So instead of approval,
I'm
we'll
not
have a
gonna
discussion.
discuss it, I'm gonna tell you what the minutes are, what's wrong, and we're gonna either
That
vote
works
on it
for
or
me,
not gonna
so
vote
we'll
on
have
it.
a
Just
dis-
by statute, I think that
So-
that's the way it ought to be done.
Nope, that makes sense. So we'll have an approval with a discussion. The minutes. Any other changes? Okay, I have one, and I sent an email, so I don't know if you guys, it was late, and I did apologize for that. What it had to do was to add Jeremy Tolliver to the committee appointments for the Sewer Board of Appeals. Jason, so you must have gotten it. Some of you get your phones, so you know it. So that's my change for the agenda, is to add Jeremy Tolliver.
Do we have a copy of his application?
You already have it. He had it for DDA. What I put in the notes was you had the DDA and you had the Planning Commission for Jeremy. It was always added. Do you want another one?
Yeah,
Oh, I've got it in the
I
office.
don't have it with me, yeah.
No, that's, because he was required for those two committees. And obviously, the DDA isn't there, and neither was the Planning Commission. So I'm adding him to the Sewer Board of Appeals with your approval.
I will move to accept the agenda as modified.
Okay, there's no other. Is there a second? Motion's been made.
Who's
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay,
You're welcome.
no, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, do we need to add something post-closed session to take a vote?
Well, the closed session, well,
Yeah.
that's a good point, because this is amended. Unfinished business, second reading, department restructuring. All right. Help me out, where's closed session?
14B.
New business, items of discussion, board.
It's right after that one.
Yeah, there's, okay, so there was no, okay. This new one kind of throws me off. Closed session. This committee appointments should come before that. Committee appointments 11.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm asking about closed session.
okay. I thought you were asking about committee appointments.
No.
Okay, what are you asking about closed session?
Do we need to add an item for action post-closed session?
Post-closed session. That's amended. Sure. That was sent out by the superintendent.
No, you have to add, it has to be added to the agenda.
Right. Okay, so that's, okay, are you still on for the change in the amendment?
I'm happy to amend my
Thank you.
motion to include the additional amendment of adding a action item, 14B sub B.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna have the approval of the agenda with 2 amendments, correct?
3.
3. And the 3 being that,
Remember the first one? I think the first one was the removal of the
Minutes.
Minutes.
The second one was the addition
Addition.
of Jeremy Tolliver, and the third one was the items for action 14B sub B, which is an item for, or a.
yes, let me come back from the,
Yes.
okay. All right, record roll call vote?
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Lisswasser?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good job. Disclosure of conflicts of interest, is there any? Not seeing any? So we'll say none. Public statement number 1. Now let me explain something before we do this. The podium will not be used, so you will stand, and it will be recorded. If you want to, you can hold the microphone.
I would
That's fine.
suggest that so it can be recorded.
Yes, that's what I said. So the microphone would record it. There was a table, no one seems to know where the table went. for you to come up and sit with microphones. So the table disappeared, so I have no clue where it is. So I guess I have to purchase another one. No one knows where it's at. Yes?
Just a quick question, you're telling the audience to not
Yes.
use the podium, but
That's
to
correct.
use the podium to record the audio?
No, the microphone is portable,
Oh, okay.
so it works. Will, you were the first one here.
Ma'am,
Oh, I'm
I have a
sorry.
question too.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have you evaluate or expand on this. What's wrong
Okay.
with the podium?
The podium itself, there's a discussion that Karen and I are having, your superintendent. And this discussion, hang on, you asked, the discussion is whether or not you have a table for your public comments so that they can sit down and have a discussion with our members. She prefers the podium. I don't like a podium.
Don't you think
So-
it's the board's decision as there's a podium or a table, or is that
Not
just your
necessarily.
opinion, you think it's just your decision?
Not necessarily, it's changing. If you have a problem with the change that takes place, then by all means express it, which you are, and that's fine. I'm just saying as long as there isn't the table that's disappeared, no one seems to know where it is, that would have made it for the public to be able to sit down and,
At my last communication with you, I indicated that I was willing to have the table and the podium, which I was willing to do, but now you're not willing to have either one.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't get that email.
Yeah, I said I was.
No, you
willing-
said the podium will still be in.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said people could, basically people could choose and we could evaluate that after.
But you don't know where the table went, correct?
I did not touch your podium.
I know, that's what
And I
you
don't-
said.
and I
My
don't-
table was not touched.
And I didn't instruct anybody to move it.
That's what you said, so that's what I said.
Okay.
The table disappeared, and that's right, oh my God's right. The table isn't there, so if you'd like to comment, please feel free. You can sit in your own chair.
I don't care whether I stand or sit.
Fine.
I was waiting to see if anyone else had any remarks to make first, but. Will Tyler White, Main Street. I'll just stand right here. First, I'd like to know the purpose of the closed session action item under new business. The Open Meetings Act requires it be either a personnel matter, real estate transaction, or pending litigation. I have an idea it has to do with the DDA suit, but it needs to be stated when you get to that point. Second, the department restructuring proposal is a good idea. I thought that was important to improve communication and administration of township services. The Parks and Rec Department, though, I think should remain separate because it's completely different and they have a lot of transactions. It's going to be growing, and they need to be separate, in my opinion. As far as the Department of Leisure Services, I've never heard of a department like that in any government. It sounds more like a hotel or a casino deal. You could put it under Department of Public Works. Parks and Rec could be part of that, but the idea of combining the farmers market and senior services was proposed before by the Downtown Development Authority. Many communities use their DDA board to administer the farmers market, the senior services, and many other programs. And just like this department restructuring proposal, the DDA can serve many functions with the same group of citizen volunteers, improving communication and streamlining services, just as this proposal has. The advantage of a DDA, though, is it has a guaranteed revenue stream, so it would improve the farmers market and senior services revenues. And since the DDA can have 12 members, it would be easy to appoint 3 or 4 members from each of those boards onto the DDA board, and you'd solve 3 problems at once. The DDA department, it is really like a department. It's not another layer of government like people say. It would solve 3 problems. The DDA department could administer the senior center and the farmers market with better financing for both would be available, and the pending litigation about the DDA would disappear if you would just appoint a new DDA board to accomplish what you're proposing in this restructuring. So something to consider, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make? Yeah.
I was sorry to hear that the DDA is no longer active. But I think the reason it's no longer active is that we have some citizens that were only willing to recognize it as relevant to the downtown area versus looking at the whole DDA corridor. And if we had been able to get that group to look at the whole corridor, they would see the expansion of the library, the expansion of the training center for BSA, the food bank system. All of those are very nice expansions that were part of the DDA corridor that we just seem to have forgotten existed in the first place. Secondly, I certainly would not want the senior center combined with the other programs at all. I am here to talk about the senior center tonight because it's not on the agenda. So I guess I wait till the end to talk about it, although I think there should be a room to put on what is not on the agenda first. I guess that's all I have to say, but I feel very strongly about both the DDA and the senior center.
Thank you, Paula. Is there anybody else? Okay, doesn't seem to be. Items from the county, we're on 6. Items from the county, state, federal, or other agencies. I don't see any of our county or state, but I do have a statement myself from the Bath Charter Community Schools. I went to their public meeting. And the schools will be open on the 23rd of this month. The Bath schools passed a number of their resolutions, or what they call authorized items, and the meeting schedule was one of them for the 2021 remainder of the year and 6 months into 2022. What they passed was they looked at their investments as to who would be authorized to do that. They officially put their authorized signature of who writes the checks so that the school will know who it is that's responsible for writing checks. They officially put their public notice for meetings, and again, that's official, so some individual there is responsible for doing that. And they had the retainer contracts, which they authorized. And again, that's a responsibility that someone from the Board of Education will have. The Finance Committee wanted to let everybody know that the school is in good shape financially for the beginning of the school year, which was very good to hear. And the school board also passed the adoption of a resolution to authorize repayments. This was interesting, to the Michigan School Bond Loan Fund. So they authorized, obviously, payments back to this fund. They passed a resolution to reopen the school of choice for the school year, 21-22. They reaffirmed the Bath Community Schools COVID response extended learning plan, just so you know. They have a federal mandate for buses. You have to wear a mask for COVID on a bus. Once they get off the bus and they're in the school, that then becomes optional for the family, the parent, the child to determine whether or not to continue to wear a mask. But on the school bus, they have to wear a mask because they're in closed quarters. The school is working very, very hard to make sure that the buildings are ready for the kids. They're doing their painting, they're washing down everything, they're sanitizing everything, and they're also waxing floors and et cetera. So that's the report from the board. Any questions? Okay. Then we will go on to the consent agenda number 7. So any questions with the consent agenda? You have the filing of the minutes from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Housing Commission, Senior Services Advisory Board, and the Planning Commission.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Vote.
Mr. Benzie?
Yes.
Mr. Felix Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item, which was 8, was approval of the minutes. So apparently with the changing of the agenda, to remove it and discuss it, do you want it in the same place? You wanted to fix it, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. would you like?
Under the treasurer's report, you need to add in, the treasurer's provided the township board members on Tuesday morning with their copy of the second quarter investment report. It's rather important that got missed for some reason. We talked about that. It was in their mailboxes. From this point forward, now that we're working in a regular live meeting, we can take and provide them at the desk, if needed so. Preferably in the packet beforehand if they get done in time, but when you have a month year end and a board meeting at the end of the month year end, you don't finish up with that till late in the day, so it got provided on Tuesday. And that was not reflected in the minutes. It has to be reflected in the minutes because that's about the only thing the statute says the treasurer has to provide this board with in the way of report is the investment report quarterly. And that didn't get noted in the minutes last week, so it should have been. With the auditor here, it's probably a pretty good thing to say.
You agree with that? All right, clerk, any questions? Okay. All right, thank you for that change. Now, do we need to vote on passing these amendments for the minutes? I think we do. Yep.
I'll move approval of the minutes with the changes the treasurer indicated.
Second.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Okay, our number 9 is the approval of vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers.
Second.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
All right. That takes us to item 10, which is treasury report. There is none. I think we've already pretty much taken care of that. Committee appointments. And this appointment is for Ray Kopke for your Park and Recreation Committee with a term ending December 31 of 2023.
I will make the motion to approve his appointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rosecrans?
No.
Ms. Butler Challenger? No. Mr. Wisswasser?
No.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
No.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes. Doesn't
It
pass.
didn't pass.
No. Okay. Now, the other one that we had would have been for, let me make sure I get the minutes out. Hang on here. Take as many notes as the clerk does. Okay, this would be for Jeremy Tolliver to be appointed to your Sewer Board of Appeals. Now I ask you to pass that. Yes,
When does this term expire?
23.
23.
Yeah, they're really, did I say 20? You're right, 3 years. Thank you. 2021, 3 years, which strangely enough, there isn't really any precedent for that. Well, I shouldn't say that. We've had a precedent. They always appoint for 3 years, but there isn't anything in the law that says 3 years. So 3 years.
2 years.
Is that what you want?
Well, I want
'Cause
to
you're
know
on the
when his
committee.
term's gonna expire.
In
Yeah.
3 years. So
Okay.
it would be December 31 of 2024. 20
23.
23.
It starts from the end of 2020, so it would be 21, 22.
No, there was a vacancy in there that didn't have a term, and that's the one that he's filling.
Yes.
There
but
was no-
It still starts from the end of 2020.
There was no ending to it. It was just vacant. So it hadn't been filled before.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
It still starts from the end of 2020. So it's
Why?
21,
Was-
22, 23.
It was, personally, that would not be mine, but there was no term on the piece with regards to when it started or when it ended. So 3 years from, if she's saying 20. I don't have a problem with that, and I don't think he would either.
It's
So
addition, it's 2023.
it shouldn't be 24, but that's okay. That's all right. No, that's
Now, if
okay.
you're taking a person's position, you have to go from that period of time.
There was none. It's a vacant, it was all the way vacant all the way across. There was no.
What are the other
it-
two,
The other one to be filled,
the other two people?
you
that are
have,
on it?
well, let me think
When are
about
they
this.
done?
Let me think about this for a minute, because there were 5 that are on that. Joe's on that committee. So there are actually 4 for the Sewer Board of Appeals. Frankly, they're all gonna kind of go at one time. So 2023 works. That's fine. December 31 of 2023.
In the spirit of being helpful, if the person's appointment starts January 1 of 2021, so at the end of 2021, December 31st, how
3
long
years.
is that? That's what, 1 year, right? So the
So,
next
year,
calendar day would
2022,
be January 1 of
23.
2022.
Correct.
The end of 2022, that'd be 2 years. The following day after the 31st would be 23, January 1st of 23, and if the appointment ends at December 31st of 2023, that's 3 years.
I get it. That's what I said. December 31 of 2023.
So that's what you're recommending.
That's what I'm recommending.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That was painful, but thank you.
Okay, Joe, you seconded it. Who first? Who motioned?
I'll
I
make the
think
motion.
Okay.
we'll say,
First did you?
we'll say Jason did.
Did you make the motion?
No. Give after the fact.
Yeah, he did. He was counting on his fingers 4, then he went 3, so
I
it
put the
worked.
most effort into it.
Yes,
Yeah, you did.
so it worked.
So who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Jason made the motion. Trustee Benzie second. Now we need a vote.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
No.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Okay, that one
Passed.
passed. Okay. So we have 2 committee appointments. Okay.
One.
Oh, that's right, Ray Kopke's didn't go. Thank you. Meaning that we did it twice, okay. Township committee reports, there are none. Unfinished business, it appears, I hope I'm reading the right one. I think I am I reading the right one? Unfinished, introduction and discussion, there is none. So we have items of action under unfinished business. Your financial report, I'm assuming it has no attachment, but just for the record, thank you, Ryan. You have yours too, so this is the audit that was mentioned. And I think, yes, yeah, please.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me out to present the audit this year. My name is Steve Breyer.
Okay, stop.
I'm an audit partner with Siegfried Crandall out of Kalamazoo. And tonight, I'm going to be fairly brief. Your audit report is big. It's your financial statement is over 60 pages. But tonight I'm going to go over the audit objectives. We've got the audit. Go over my independent auditor's report. And then I'm going to touch on the financial statements and mainly focus on the general fund. That's the main fund of the township, so that's where I'm going to keep my focus. And then I'm going to discuss the internal control findings, and then I'll open it up for questions from the board. So as far as the audit goes, a lot of times people think that the objective of the audit is it's a fraud investigation or something like that, but the objective is to express an opinion of the financial statements. And it's not to express an opinion on your internal control either. And a lot of times people get confused and think that that's the purpose. So management is actually responsible for the preparation of the presentation of the financial statements, and you're also responsible, you are responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls. So as far as the audit opinion goes, we expressed a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion, it's called. There's different types of opinions that we could express. We could have unmodified, which you received, that's the highest level of assurance that your financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and free of material misstatement. The other types of opinions are, we could have a modified opinion, so we might say something like, except for debt, your financial statements are free of material misstatement. So if your debt was incorrect, then that would be a modified opinion. And then there's an adverse opinion, and I would just say that the financial statements as a whole are not prepared according to GAAP. So you definitely want to stay away from that. But your opinion was unmodified, as I stated earlier. So as far as the financial statements go, when I do a presentation, I always go through ahead of time and try to look at things to point out weaknesses or areas of concern that I see, and I'll point those out if I see any. But overall, the township's in good financial position. So I looked at, the sewer fund, the water fund, you have positive cash flow, you have your fund balance, or net position rather, is increasing in those funds. So I just thought I would focus on the general fund. And if you have your book, if you want to look at it, those are on pages 12 and 14, the general fund balance sheet, page 10, the income statement, if you were to page 12.
Did you get it? Jeez.
Should be on top.
So during the year ended December 31, 2020, your general fund balance increased by approximately $438,000. You had revenues of $4.5 million, small transfer to the cemetery fund, $10,000. Those exceeded the expenditures of $4.1 million. At the end of the year, at 12/31/20, your fund balance was $3.8 million. And a portion of that is unassigned fund balance, which was $3.3 million. So that's not, there's no restriction on that. It can be spent, it can be set to fund operations, basically. So the Government Finance Officers Association, they recommend a minimum fund balance of 2 months, or approximately 17% of your actual expenditures. So your unassigned balance of $3.3 million is approximately 80% of total expenditures, $4.1 million. So your financial position is very good at the end of the year. You obviously exceeded the GFOA's recommendation, and that is just a recommendation, but most municipalities try to follow that, and you did it and you exceeded it, so that's great, that's good news. So I'd say overall the township's in a good financial spot at 12/31/20. As far as internal control findings go, there were none, so that's another positive. I audit, my firm audits over 120 municipalities, and I would say 95% receive at least one material weakness in internal controls. And a part of that internal control, you have Maynard Casterison help with the accounting at year-end financial statement preparation. And so I get this booklet from them, and I audit that booklet, and that makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to prepare the statements. And just by them preparing the statements, that eliminates a control deficiency.
Karen, his audio's not going live.
Just not close enough to
You can't hear his audio.
the microphone might be switched off.
It just needs to be tipped up, probably.
Say something. Okay. It's not going out. I don't know if it's going out now or not. But it wasn't.
I'm a quiet talker, so that could be it too.
If you'd like to turn that podium around so you can stand behind it,
Used
you go ahead and do
correctly,
it.
so some people could hear something. Gee.
That's what the microphone's for.
You know it's
Would've
bad when
been
you're getting
easier
text
in the
messages.
table. Oh, God.
Just one moment.
Speaking of internal controls.
Yeah. Well, they know that. They're watching it.
George was telling me that they're invasive species from county roads that they should be spraying. If you don't keep it down each year, it gets out of control. One of it's looks like a cattail, but it's got fuzz on the top of it. The other is a blue flower.
Hang in there.
There's two of them. Quite a few spots in the township. And then we should, just want to let you know that Lieutenant County Road Committee meeting, and we'll go ahead and map out where they're at. And then bring up
I think it's that microphone because they can hear us even shuffling papers. Okay.
It should pick up the voice. Okay. There it is. There it is.
We apologize.
Okay, so, can you hear me?
Is that-
You think
You
it's
might want to turn it up towards your face a little bit more. There you go.
good? All right. So just basically, so everyone missed everything, but as far as the finances go for the township, in my opinion, you're in really good shape. You're at, your fund balance, unassigned fund balance is at 80% of your actual expenditures at 12/31/20. And the Government Finance Officers Association recommends a minimum fund balance of 2 months or 17%. So overall, the township's in good shape financially. And then we moved on to internal control findings, and there are none, which is very rare. I audit about 120 municipalities, my firm does, and about 95% have at least one material weakness in internal controls. And as far as internal controls go, we look at your cash disbursements, your cash receipts, and your payroll processes. And if we identify any weaknesses, we would report them to you. Another area is the preparation of your financial statements. And that's what gets a lot of municipalities, the financial statement prep. If we as the auditors prepare the statements and you're not able to, then you'd have a material weakness over the preparation of those statements. So I'm happy to report there are no material weaknesses or deficiencies in control that we came across. So overall, the audit went very well. I'm looking at your finances; they look good. No internal control weaknesses. So great job. In conclusion, I just want to thank the clerk and treasurer and the superintendent. They were all here in the field when I did the audit. They were very well prepared for me, answered all the questions I had, provided me with all the documents I needed, and it was a smooth transition. First year audit's always tough, and I thought it went really well, and I think it'll even be better going forward. First year is there's always a little more difficulty. The auditor getting to know you getting to know us. And I also want to thank Maynard Costerison and Aaron Stevens and his team. They got us a lot of things in advance, so I did a lot of planning before I came out here in the field. I probably would have been, I shouldn't say probably, I know I would have been here longer had they not provided that information ahead of time. So Aaron's team did a great job, and and I appreciate that. And I want to thank the board for selecting us to do the audit. I enjoy working here, and I hope to be here for a while. Now I'll just open it up if any of the board members have questions on the audit. No?
No, apparently it doesn't look like there are questions on your audit,
Thank you very much.
so thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, apparently our items for actions are showing a financial report that needs to be voted on, so is that an acceptance? Do we have a,
I would move, Madam Chairman, to accept and place on file the 2020 Bath Township financial statements ending December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Go ahead.
Yep.
they could arm wrestle, but you go ahead.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes,
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
all right. So the acceptance of the financial audit report passes. Now we're going to apparently B, small b, second reading and adoption of the 3170. So is there a motion?
There is.
And what's your motion?
I move to accept the second reading of
Okay,
ordinance 3170.
Support?
support, good. Vote,
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
All right, the second reading and adoption of ordinance 3170 passes unanimously. Correct, okay. Now we go on to items for action C, which is your budget amendments for your second quarter. I think that's Superintendent Hildebrandt.
Yes, one new item that was added to this since you last saw it, everything else is the same, is an amount at the top of the list of expenditures for $8,200. That is for building and grounds land improvements and demolition of a house located at 6491 Park Lake Road, Bath. We obtained sealed bids, and we had previously budgeted $15,000, which you can see on the second page. And the preferred contractor bid came in at $23,200.
Any questions, discussion? So the motion is to accept. I have questions, but anybody else have any questions? Apparently not.
Do you want a motion?
Well, we can do a motion. You want to do discussion first or a motion? It's entirely up to you.
No, you're the chair, it's up to
Okay,
you.
then we'll have discussion, then a motion. So if that's how you want to do it, if that's how I want to do it. Gotcha. All right, what I'm questioning is, with our audit, it was claimed from our audit, which we just passed, that we have $600,000 to the black. So my question, and it's a pretty simple one, why do we need these amendments if we have that kind of money left over?
It's a different fiscal year.
No, it's the same. This one passed in 2021, or 2020. These are 2021. So what happened to the $600,000 from this audit?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
Well, number
Go
one.
right ahead.
This is 2000
Somebody's got to answer it.
As trustee Bliss just mentioned, this is 2021. You have a lot more than $600,000, because what you did is you rolled that money forward to the next fiscal year into the
Which would be
fund
2021.
balance. That's correct.
Correct.
And you have to take and budget for this, you have to budget for your expenditures, so you have to go back through and you have to take and approve all your budget amendments. Or otherwise, you're not gonna have any internal controls, and you're gonna get a black mark in your audit for the next year, because that's what fund accounting is all about.
Try me on that one more time. You're saying that if we don't pass this, then we don't have internal controls.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're saying we have to pass this, which is the 24,000, to look at what monies.
Last year's
we need.
money is gone. It's been
Okay.
rolled back over into the general fund and you're
Right.
starting all over again.
I understand that. So in the general fund, if from the audit report of 2020, there's $600,000 plus in their general fund, why do we need to amend our budget for 2021 if we already have that money left over?
Because you didn't budget for it.
Okay. Why didn't we budget for it?
Because these are amendments to your budgets, these are
That's-
expansions. And you might want to even ask the superintendent, because she's the
That's fine.
actual author of the budget. All I
Correct.
am is the keeper of it, as far as the keeper of the general ledger of keeping track of it. But you just got through having a professional from an audit firm, I don't see him here anymore, you just
No,
got through having somebody
Right.
tell you that you were in the top 5% of
I-
the people
I
in
get all
the
that.
state.
Yes.
Of the way they do their budgeting and the way they keep track of their money, and you're questioning the way we're doing this now?
Well, I wasn't gonna question him because the audit just tells you,
No, you're
Yes,
questioning the
I'm
township,
I'm
and
questioning-
you're questioning the staff of why they're
yeah,
doing this.
that's exactly, this I'm
And you just
questioning.
had somebody tell you,
This-
just as 5 minutes ago,
Yes.
that you were in the top 5% of everybody that's in this state.
And that's supposed to
And you
make this
gotta ask
okay.
this question?
Yes, I do. Simply because we
I
shouldn't
don't,
be
I don't
asking.
think, Madam Chairman, I could give you an answer that you would be happy with, and there ain't a person out here in this audience that I care if you're disgusted with my comment, that's fine. You are just not capable of understanding it, and I just told you what the deal is, and I don't really know if it's even my job. I think it's the author of the budget down here's job to do this, but as the treasurer and the keeper of the money, your money rolls forward. Anybody who's been in township government or any kind of budgeting thing for years realizes that money rolls forward. You just can't keep it and spend it for a rainy day. It rolls forward into the fund balance, and then you have to take and rebudget for your budget, or you have to amend your budget so that it balances at the end of the fiscal year, so when the auditors come in here and they audit you, that you have shown what you did with your money. I don't know how much more plain and simple this process could be. I find this to be interesting, at best,
Good.
like most
Okay.
days at work here at that township.
That's absolutely correct. I'm
So when
good
I
with that.
created the budget
Okay.
in September of 2020, I could not foresee how much it would cost to knock down a house on Park Lake
No,
Road.
I understand that,
So
yes.
when I took sealed bids, it came out to $23,200. And so I had previously budgeted 15, so now I need 8,000 more. So I'm bringing it to the board for you to decide if that's in fact what you would like to do, is spend $8,000 more to knock down the house on Park Lake Road.
So this money then so this money then comes from the general fund?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Which
One
is the 3.8
million,
million just
but he
told me
said,
you had.
but he has 3.3 that's not, it's unrestricted. So it can be used, and that's what I questioned. All right, one other quick question, and then we'll go to the treasurer. On your land improvement, you put $70,000, it's on page 5 of your revenue and expenditures for Bath Township. There was $70,000 that you allocated, which made lots of sense, in 2021. We haven't spent any of that, and yet,
Does it mean that all the projects that are approved and in
Okay.
the line item below won't use that $70,000? And I like to run a budget where I'm not gonna be over in a line.
okay.
The $70,000 is spoken for.
Oh, okay. Here it says it's not spoken for. So it is spoken for.
If you're looking at a revenue and expenditure report,
Right.
it just means it hasn't been spent yet.
As of June.
Correct.
Okay. So in July, it could very well have been spent.
Some of it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. No, what reason I'm asking is because in that section, that's the land improvement for the demolishing. If we have the 70,000 or even half of that, we're saying that we have 23,000 that's needed for the bid. So why don't we just use that as opposed to taking out the
Because
general
the
fund?
70,000, when I budget,
Okay.
it would be Ben Zeeb, as the Department of Public Works, director, comes to me and he itemizes for that $70,000. He says, I want a pole barn, I want this equipment, I want this, and this. And all those things he tells me adds up to $70,000. So
For the
I budget
township.
For $70,000.
Okay,
And so when I need more,
which
this is
apparently,
outside of
that's 70,000.
the 70,000.
Okay, so,
I still have 4 or 5 months to spend.
right.
What's in that line?
No, that's what I understood, but I didn't understand when it asked for this additional money, if we already had 70,000 in it. But if you're explaining that you could use that between June 31st and August, then we don't know that it's been spent.
The end of, yes, the end of the
Okay.
year. As long as we spend it by the end of the year. If there's a project that does not get accomplished by the end of the year, that money will go back into the general fund.
No, I understand it goes back, but I don't understand why we're asking for this additional funds.
Because
From this,
that
but that's okay.
$70,000 has a plan to be spent on
Okay.
other things.
Okay. No, that was my comment.
Okay,
That $70,000 is already budgeted. When I went through the budget process, the author of that part has his purchases in that 70,000. He just hasn't made them all this year yet, okay?
well,
So we would have to amend the budget, and we do it 4 times
no, I
a year
understand that,
to keep our numbers in order, okay?
Because
As
they're-
things change.
right.
And I don't care how good you can budget, these changes are gonna happen, and that's what we're doing here. We're approving the changes.
I told you in the
Okay.
beginning, I thought it would cost $15,000 to knock the house down.
Sure,
And then I found out it's gonna be $23,200.
right.
So I didn't account for that other $8,200. So now I'm telling you, it's gonna cost me another $8,200. If you give me that money, then that project will be completed as soon as we can complete it.
So the land improvements that trustee Bensie's talking about has already taken up the 70,000.
Or will
Correct.
by the end of
Okay.
the year.
Al's got it.
Nope, I see his hand. It's nice to see you in person.
I'm not so sure.
Go right ahead, okay, whatever.
The reason this bid was higher was because we're taking
Why-
out a bunch of trees
Right,
and cleaning up the area so we can use it. If not, we would end up with a real mess down there.
no, I wasn't concerned about the dollar amount so much as what the bid was. What I was looking at was $70,000 that we already have, so if we already had 70,000, why are we amending? That was my,
Because that's why we have a budget. And we
A blank check.
we have money in
it's a blank
any
check,
account.
No, it's a check for $78,200.
yeah, okay. All right,
No, I'm
So-
telling you what I'm spending it on.
which is 23,000 for the demolished. I understand that.
And then
but
there's
if-
notes in the budget that tells you what the $70,000 is for,
In the revenue and expenditures?
in the budget. In the
That's not
budget
the
that the
budget.
board adopts.
No, I know it's not the budget, that's why I'm asking.
In the budget
That's-
that the board adopts, that you have a copy of.
Yes,
And
in
that
fact,
is
I do.
online. It tells you in
I-
the notes down at the bottom what the major projects are that account for that $70,000.
In the future,
This year, by the end
yeah,
of 2021.
in this future. Okay, nope, that's, okay, nope. I'm s-
Did you have
tapping.
questions on any
No.
of the other items?
Oh, I'm sorry, go right ahead, Treasurer.
This township is built by its budgeting and by its reserves and its fund balance, which gets rolled over every year, which it has for years and years and years. The fire station, as an example, down
That is
over the hill,
example. Yep,
was a $1 million check that was written to take and build that. We bonded for $900,000. We turned around 2 years later, and we wrote a check for $700,000 out of fund balance, which was money that got rolled over from different departments, different funds, and everything part of the general fund. We built the police station. The room that you're sitting in right now, in an appropriate place, I might add, it is
it's an appropriate
built,
place.
was built and built onto out of fund fund balance and conservative budgeting. Budgeting isn't just taking and watching out whether or not have an opinion on whether it's an open check. Budgeting is about rolling over fund balances every year, having audits like we had, and having controls so that we are watching our expenditures and putting our money back into where it's supposed to go, the general fund. That's what this is for the roll it over each year. So that's what this is about. That's why you can afford to do what you're doing. It's not about being a blank check. It's about being transparent and showing where your money was at the end of the year, how much you had left that you didn't spend, and putting it back into your reserve, which is the fund balance, and then writing a new budget and budgeting for each and every expense that every department has. If they don't use that money at the end of the year, they don't just get to keep it for something. They have to take and put it back into the general fund, and then they have to start over again. And then, like last week, I'm shocked that you even brought this up, because just last week in the sewer fund, which is a total separate fund from this, we had to take and approve a sewer project that did not get completed in 2019, and because of COVID and whatnot, but we didn't just go ahead and just approve the project. We had to take and amend the budget, and we had to amend money to the budget so that we could do it, because that money in 2019 rolled over into our sewer fund and become part of our sewer fund balance. And so you have to take and reschedule it, because we already have $225,000 in the sewer fund budget for capital improvements for the year, which are already spoken for other projects that was planned and forward. We planned them in a way that we knew we were gonna need them down the road, so we had to take and dig into our piggy bank for the sewer fund, and we had to take and fund our one that we came up this year that we're gonna get done. I'm amazed at your knowledge of budgeting. I truly have, or your lack of, and the questions that we have. When you have the kind of a township that you have here, this is a $28 million a year business. I've said
Yes,
that
it
many
is.
a times.
Yes.
And money comes and goes every day, and it's an interesting thing. And for you questioning whether or not, as though we're doing something wrong here,
I didn't say you were doing something wrong.
I find
questioned
your comments irresponsible. I really do.
It's too bad. I'm sorry you do, because I think the public has a right to know, and the 101.
The public ain't asking the question.
That's-
The person who's been elected to office as a township supervisor is who's asking a question. And there's no reason why she couldn't ask these questions earlier. She could have asked
Yes,
the
I could.
auditor when the auditor was here doing the audit, but you
I didn't
refused
question
to
his
meet
audit.
with the audit. You
No, I
refused
did
to meet
not.
with the auditor.
No, I did not
Other
refuse.
trustees met with the auditor, you refused to, because your
No, I
comment
did
was
not.
to me in a very terrible response
did
was,
not.
I'm not gonna go and just make up for your mistakes. That's what your comment was. And there's other people that heard the comment, so there you
Well,
go.
good, let's bring him in. Go ahead, trustee Bliss.
We don't need to bring them in.
You sure you do?
No, we don't need
Because
to
I don't
bring them
remember
in.
saying that, but
You're
that's okay.
disgusting, that's what you are.
I know.
I move approval of the budget amendments for the second quarter of 2021.
I'll
as presented.
second it.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
No.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that, budget amendments pass?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, we need let's see, the next item is BD, as in David, Department Restructuring.
Thank you. I continue to work through this, and I've had a lot of good feedback this weekend and questions from board members. I would like to, at this time, I'm not withdrawing it in terms of, I would probably recommend that we wait on the recreation manager and the senior, let me see, director, I have it right here somewhere, recreation manager, and then the recreation and senior center director, and because I believe they still need more work. I think in terms of the recreation department, I still believe that it involves the farmer's market and the senior center. What I haven't flushed out yet is how how those all fit together and who can drive the goals and the services that that department will provide to the community. And I believe they are all under that umbrella. So I would like time to continue to work on that. The Senior Services Advisory Board, when I met with them on 7/22/2021, asked for the Senior Center Director position to be made full-time, and I do support that. I just quite haven't figured out how the recreation manager, which I still believe should work with the farmer's market, how that will all work together. So I would like additional time to work on those. What I do and would like you to consider moving forward tonight would be the Director of Parks and Public Works, which I've included a position description. I would like that to begin immediately if that's possible. And I would also like the Deputy Superintendent position to remove the Communications Director in the headline, or excuse me, the title of the job, excuse me. And I would also like that to begin immediately. But as for the others, I would like to still have discussion with all of you to get that where I think it needs to be to make it right for this township. So if there are questions or comments or.
Go ahead, trustee.
I met with the Farmers Market Board last week and shared some of these proposed changes with them. There's real excitement by the board to do this. The feeling that getting a full-time person who can manage recreation and the farmers market, they felt would make the market more successful. The current market manager, who is a part-time employee, mentioned that he is often not at the township when he needs to be responding to calls and emails and occasionally walk-ins from folks that want to deal with farmers market business. If someone was here full-time, able to respond to those, his comments were that he thought it would be more successful and we would be more successful. So if I can speak on their behalf, they seemed very excited about this possibility.
Is that common in their experience to have those two positions combined?
Yes, so Adam Montry, who's our chair of the Farmers Market Board, mentioned that multiple recreation departments across the state and nation run the farmers market for those local municipalities. So while it would be nice to think we're on the forefront in creating something completely new, he assures us that this has been through the ringer a couple of times and is successful in other areas.
Okay.
Point of clarification, having the farmers market within the Parks and Rec department is not necessarily saying that it's managed by the same person. So oftentimes the Parks and Rec is the housing unit, but there is a separate market manager. Now those are for usually typically larger farmers markets. So I just wanted to add that clarification.
Good thought. I had the same. I have a quick question.
Sure.
You're renaming, am I understanding this whole, you're renaming just to rename without, has there been communication with board members? Because there wasn't any communication with me.
This is the communication.
Okay, so you're looking.
I would prefer not to rename. I think that Will
Okay,
is correct.
that's-
Leisure,
yeah,
I was
that
trying to
doesn't- okay.
encompass
Okay.
several things in that because each of those items does something special for the community. It's not just leisure, and so I threw that out there and tried to
Okay.
kind of mull it over, but it's not the right word
It's
for
not
us.
fitting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I will
Nope, I get
continue
it.
to mull that, and I would take input. Some people have called it community services, some people have called it just different things in different areas, but I think it's difficult to say that to house these three things when recreation usually provides an opportunity for kids and families to play sports and to do fun things in the community, and then the senior center can provide recreation and socialization for people that come to the senior center, but we're also providing critical services such as food, diaper services, social services, and other aspects, so it's hard to get those all under one umbrella. And it may be that we'll figure out it can't be under one umbrella.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say, because you're looking at Park and Recreation, Farmers Market, and the Senior Center all under the same umbrella. Okay.
Yeah, and I
And that's what you're calling leisure, I mean,
We'll
that's,
leave it-
yeah.
We'll leave it rec.
but-
But even in some areas,
I
like
get it.
Delta Township, even the cemeteries are in the recreation
Right.
department.
Yeah,
That's
everybody
the
does it
furthest thing from
different.
recreation,
Everybody
but-
does it different. Okay, hang on one second. So then your director for Parks and Public Works, actually, I think that's a good idea. And that should be, okay, no,
So I
ahead,
don't
trustee.
think you need to claim responsibility for the use of leisure. The background is that trying to identify a term that would encompass that global set of responsibilities that didn't
Yeah, because
pigeonhole
they
that person
don't-
into recreation or
Right.
parks or senior services. I had pulled a term from an MSU major, so there is a major of leisure studies, which is encompassing of, and I'm not saying it's a good one, because
I
when I
was
saw it
gonna
on
say,
paper,
no, I've
it looks
seen that,
terrible.
no.
But there is
Because I
a
never
major
understood
that
it.
is encompassing of recreation, vacationing, even community service.
Service.
So I saw that as more of an inclusive terminology, poorly executed on paper. So I will own that
No,
really
I-
bad suggestion.
because that's different.
Yeah, but I
You-
do
you
think
sort
that
of-
the point there of
Yeah.
how do we revision that position so that we break down the silos as per the communications from the silos between the senior services center, the farmers market, and the parks and rec work. They're all doing their own thing when they could be working together, or even partnering with the library or bath days. Or we need to create greater communication. And the question is, how do we do that? I do think restructuring is an important first step in that, and we may
See,
disagree, but
yeah.
this is my opinion.
No, I get that. My only problem with restructuring these, and the term silo means that it's independent of itself. That's what a silo, correct? Am I using that term correctly, where you end up having all these different entities? Part of the problem is the communication between these silos, and because it doesn't exist, doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist, or it doesn't mean that it needs to be reformed. It just means that you need to work a little harder on those partnerships, if that's what you're looking at. If the senior center has partners with Park and Rec that they need to go to for them, or the farmer's market, then that communication needs to take place. But it doesn't mean you restructure them to do it. And that silo, when you do the chart, and you've done the charts, because I've done the charts, when you have your silos and you have your connections with them, that's the communication between silo A, silo B, silo C, silo D. They're all communicating with each other. But that doesn't mean that you put them under one
This is
umbrella.
not a new issue for any
No,
organization.
it's not a new
there's-
issue.
There's whole disciplines on how to break
Right.
down and improve communication.
But I think
Yeah.
if the goal is to say, these groups will work together and will
Right.
communicate and will be part of a team, and that's what I would like. And I know that a lot of people hate, using that team word, but
Oh, no, I think that's,
I think that it says that you do similar things, you can do them more possibly efficiently and effectively if you work together, and we can accomplish more than what you're doing at the senior center. Maybe there's a wider audience for that program, or what you're doing here.
Okay.
There could be a wider audience for it, and that hasn't occurred in the past.
so you're thinking if you put them together under one umbrella, there would be better communication
Yes.
as opposed
I'm already
to,
seeing it happen in other areas of the township that have been put into a group and are being led. I mean, the front office is doing it, the back hallway is doing it, police and fire do it every day. There's similar services that can work together.
but that doesn't mean that they're individuals. In other words, that doesn't mean because they work together, that's a better communication, and I would agree with that 100%. We used to do that whole thing with team training. You train for a lot of different areas. I get that. What I'm struggling with, and this is where, I've got to do some thought process with it, is putting it under one umbrella. Because the clerk, for example, I'm going to use you because you're sitting there, the clerk's jobs and her responsibilities are not the same as our assessor. It's not the same as our planning director. She has particular things that she works on. it's the same, I think, with the assessor. I don't think she'd want to be included under the same umbrella.
But they're not.
No, they're not. They're individuals. That's correct.
I know,
They're
but
not.
we have a group working up front together.
Right. Oh, no
The
question.
treasurer's
No
office,
question.
My office, from my department and from the treasurer's department that are working together very well.
Absolutely.
We have planning, assessing,
I get
and
that.
the building department working very well.
But they're not under the same umbrella. They're communicating better.
They're under
they're-
an umbrella, and
They're under an umbrella, correct. It's not the same umbrella.
I agree.
No, that's correct. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I think one way of looking at this is not necessarily focusing on an umbrella, but focus on roles and responsibilities of the people who staff these entities. And so when you have part-time employees who are overseeing a senior center or overseeing a farmer's market or overseeing a parks department, Parks and Rec, they're so focused on getting the work done, right? The recruiting of volunteers, the organizing of events, the writing up of meeting minutes. I think what we're trying to do is creatively think about how can we lift some positions up, reposition other positions so that we've got people who are focused on doing the implementation of the programs. You got at least someone who's thinking more broadly, who's taking the time to schedule meetings and have meetings with the planning department, having meetings with schools, having meetings with the library, and generating ideas, meeting with community members. So I would think about it like that, and we're trying to do this in a frugal, in my opinion, yet fiscally responsible way of how do we do this sustainably long term. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think we're really close to being there. I think we just need to think about the articulation of this and terminology, because we're focused on the terminology.
Well, that's because everybody uses it. Okay, no, I understand where you're coming from. I'm still struggling a little bit with the communication if it's not done, but that's my own piece there. Who then? Let's say this happens. Let's say your umbrella includes these three entities that go in there, and you're talking about what, 2 or 3 people from each committee that would be somehow appoint, and then 2 trustees instead of 3. No, 1 trustee? Okay. All right. How does that happen? Who appoints? How do you physically do that?
I guess those groups would have to, I think for the farmer's market people, I think it would be very easy because there are
So they would
on
pick.
that board
Okay.
that have been on the board since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the farmer's market.
That's true.
And they're tired. That's one of the reasons that they
Yes.
wanted to combine, I believe. So
All right.
I think that there would be 3 from each
Okay.
and 1 board trustee member, and
So that's 6 committee members of this new committee being formed, and 1 board of trustees. Who appoints those?
The board.
So the board appoints it. That's not done by this supervisor, so that's understood. That's not done, the board then,
well, they're already appointed in the Senate, so.
well, they have graciously agreed to whatever appointments come to them, so,
I believe we have a board member there already in recreation. Do we have a board member
Right.
appointed to recreation already?
yep.
Okay.
And you do
Well, then we
farmer's
need
market?
6 more.
No, you do.
Come on. We also have someone
So
on the
why
farmer's market board.
recreation? Why not farmers? Why not? Okay, I understand.
Well, this is this part of the discussion is kind of the budget discussion. She's not asking us to approve that part of the discussion tonight. What she's asking us to approve
I
tonight.
understand. That's,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
No,
This is kind of for in the future, we're gonna work on this some more.
Well, massaging it and having to have it come together also means to understand what it is that you're looking at, the whole picture, not just the one part. So in looking at the whole picture, you have to look at, okay, so you're gonna have this, if this passes, and this is what the board decides that they want, then the actual continuation of that new committee because you're gonna eliminate 3, and you're gonna create 1. Is that right? That's right, okay. So you're eliminating
2.
3.
2.
2?
Parks and Rec and the farmer's market.
So it's gonna fall under the senior oh, I guess I missed
No, the
that.
senior center
I'm
is
sorry.
completely separate.
Okay.
The senior services board of, the senior center, oh my gosh. The senior services board, advisory board will
Thank you.
remain as it is currently.
All right, so you're gonna take 2 boards. Hang on 1 second. I see you, Al. Hang on.
I'm just holding my head.
Probably needs to be
But
had.
I do have a motion to make.
Yep, I get, but there's no other communication that I have except here, so I'm sorry that this, is a long haul, but it is a long haul. These are questions that I have that I'm looking for some kind of an answer to it, of understanding what it is that you're trying to do. So you have 2 committees. So the senior center is gonna stay as is.
As is.
So the farmer's market and Park and Rec is going to be under one
Rec.
umbrella.
Just Rec. Parks goes to the DPW.
Okay, now say that again.
Parks is
Parks.
being taken out of recreation and is being put into
Into recs.
DPW. Department of Public Works.
Is gonna take over the parks. I know, I saw that, I'm not so sure but I saw that, okay,
They
so,
already work together on those. I mean, no,
I
the
realize
recreation
that.
coordinator doesn't usually have anything to do with the actual parks.
then you'll have to change the ordinance, because it claims the Park and Rec takes care of the parks. So, whatever, but anyway, for this issue, so, it's not Park and Recreations, we're calling it Recreation, not Parks, okay. So we're changing the name of Park and Recreation to Recreation.
Correct.
Basement's looking pretty good right now.
I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I'm just, you're really struggling.
I am
Seems
struggling.
like, okay, and I'm gonna throw you a lifeline.
Please do.
Okay.
It would be very helpful.
We're not working on this right now. She's gonna work on this some more later. Okay.
But it's gonna eventually come to you.
Where you have questions,
Yes,
we're not deciding on that this evening.
you should be, but okay.
We're
That's
deciding
okay.
on the first piece of this, okay?
All right, what's the first piece?
Alan?
Go ahead, Alan, make your motion.
Oh, thank you. I would like the 2 positions that Karen has described, the deputy superintendent and the director of Parks and Public Works, that we approve these
That's so
2 positions.
Support.
Okay, Ryan, you were out, did you catch it?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the 2 positions, okay? Correct?
To create the Director of Park and Rec and Public Works position and the Deputy Superintendent's position?
Correct.
Yes?
To effective immediately?
Yeah,
Effective
immediately.
Yes, immediately.
Question?
Yes,
We're gonna keep the senior center separate by itself, correct?
Correct. Nothing's changing with that right now.
now, right now means in the future,
No.
okay? Just so I'm,
I will bring you back a proposal for you all to vote on before anything changes with
Okay.
anything else. That's why we're here tonight. This is why you're seeing this. You're discussing it and agreeing to it. I can't make these changes. I can't establish positions by myself, so that's why I'm
Nope.
here asking for it.
But to be clear, restructuring departments is wholly within your scope.
Okay, but I would like to
No.
have the input of this board.
you need to
It
look at.
is, it
You
is.
need to
It's
look
not a question, I'm making a statement. The
Okay.
chief executive runs the departments. Creation of positions is a board activity.
And you voted for her as an employee, which is your prerogative.
I have no idea what that means.
Why, you have a PhD, you should.
I don't have a PhD, and I think that's
That's good to
incredibly
know.
insulting.
Okay, can I call a question here? We need to vote.
Yes,
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you.
thank you. Go ahead and vote.
Okay, so, Ms. Howe?
No.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fuens Glass?
Twice.
What did he say?
No.
Where are we? Budget amendments, restructuring, new business, item 14. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure with this new. All right, these are items for introduction and discussion. It was kind of an interesting place. Go ahead. Are you going to, you do the MERS? Well, the Southern Clinton County Municipal Authority.
Kind of an interesting place.
Well, are we going to vote on any of these?
They're for introduction and discussion.
I realize that.
Then we're not
For you
gonna
to
vote.
decide if you would like to vote on it.
Okay.
So what I brought before you tonight is, and Brad has graciously joined us to discuss a major project that has come before the Southern Clinton County Municipal Utility Authority. I tried to go back and provide you a detailed history of what has occurred since October 2019, and I can't remember if that was my first or second meeting at that time, but I had just become superintendent, and at the SCUMA board, we did a qualifications-based selection process to choose an engineering firm that was to, at that time, evaluate the facility at SCUMA and compare it to the authority's existing capital improvement projects, which they also have their own CIP. So during that time, they placed all of those projects on hold because they didn't want to just spend the money if they didn't need to spend the money. So they wanted to wait for the outcome of this study. And they chose at the time Moore and Brugink, I hope I said that correctly, to undertake that study. Since that time, Moore and Brugink and SCUMA staff have worked closely with what is now considered EGLE, Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, on the validation of standards that basically impact how their facility operates and how it's designed. Both parties basically were allowed to develop, this is really neat because I don't think this has been done before in the state. But I'll let you speak to that. But they allowed us to develop a model of an alternative collection system, and they used that basically to get an accurate review of the capacity and the capability of the SCUMA facility. So, and I'll let Brad talk about that a little bit more. That model actually provided evidence that the facility had more capacity well above the current 5 MGD, million gallons per day, that we currently, the 4 members of SCUMA, live within. EGLE determined that we could receive a conditional rating of up to 6 MGD at the SCUMA facility based on some improvements. So it's kind of like when we look at a special use permit and we say, okay, but there's conditions, they gave us conditions. So what they wanted to see were benefits beyond the functional integrity of the SCUMA facility. Most of those and the presentation slides that I gave you were to get efficiency gains and energy reductions, which overall would help reduce operations and maintenance expenses, which is good news for the facility as well as the members of the authority. So on our most recent meeting in July, Treasurer Wiswasser and I were there to receive a presentation by Moore and Brugink, and we also received a project schedule and an estimate. So the $15.9 million is a big number that made, Steve and I made our hearts
sure
a little bit. So,
So large.
we're basically responsible, and I know you talked about a number today that was different possibly than the number that we were looking at, but we're basically responsible for 27% of that cost. That cost includes capital costs, contingency costs, and then all of the engineering and the design for the construction phases. And so Moore and Brugink basically said they believe once they looked at finished the design, the amount could be less. So we don't know that for sure at this point.
Can I interject something here? If I understood you correctly, and I'm sure I did. we're north of $3 million on this
I think
proposal.
it's like 3.8,
Okay,
yeah.
so what's the plan for paying for this?
So Steve and I are preparing to meet with, what used to be Umbaugh and Associates is now, Baker Tilly.
Okay,
To review what we currently have in debt, and what our options would be going forward to create a plan that would take care of our part of this. And I can let
yeah,
Treasurer Ms.
I'm working from memory, but we should have some debt retiring here in the near future that might fund some, if not most of this, without increasing people's taxes. So that would be real good if we could work something like that out.
Yeah, but that's why we plan to meet with Baker Tilly, was to
Okay.
go over our options.
Okay.
So,
So I just wanted everybody to understand we are talking north of 3 million here.
yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we authorized at that meeting for Moore and Ruging to go ahead with the design of the upgrades. And that looks like it will take about 9 months. So at the end of that 9 months, we should have an idea of what it's actually going to cost and what that's part of that will actually be. So we won't be dealing in estimates anymore. Hopefully we'll have better, more realistic numbers. So, in addition to that, Steve and I have both talked about, purchasing more capacity in addition to that, because that helps spur growth and development in the township, so.
Let's purchase it after we get this job done.
A quick question.
It's gonna cost us some money.
When you're talking about this 3.8 million, which is the number that was brought up, what is that for? Is that for Bath Township or is that for SCUMA? So are we
Bath
just
Township's share of the project cost.
and their project is to do what? What's SCUMA's project?
That's what she just described.
That's why I'm asking.
Take care of our sewage.
Expand,
That's
it's,
not what I mean.
It improves the plant and increases
That's what I mean.
the capacity.
So it's the plant's improvement and the capacity improvement SCUMA's looking for at our,
Please, you can
yes,
technical.
please, thank you.
Actually, just say that.
No, she didn't just say that.
She did.
Yes, she
No
did.
way.
No, she didn't.
So,
Well, you wouldn't understand.
Of course I didn't understand.
Right.
It'd be stupid.
so to ultimately answer your question, Supervisor,
Thank you.
so keep in mind the SCUMA plant is 40-plus years old.
Okay.
These
that's-
projects ultimately would come down the pike somewhere along the line. When we went down this road with Eagle, I need to be clear, 16 million is a big number. There's no doubt about that. But when we went down the road with Eagle, we talked about the modeling. This was a one-off. They've never done this. We really had to push the envelope and work our way up the Eagle chain to try to get some logic, or at least express our logic in what we are seeing operationally. And we knew we could handle more than the 5 million gallon design. Operationally, this has been our history. We see it once in a while. The rain events, we'll put 8 million, 9 million gallons through that facility. Now, what that means doesn't mean we can treat that every day at full capacity, because it's a different waste product when we're at that level. It's highly diluted, lots of rainwater infiltration. So it's a different product. But with that being said, that information goes to Eagle and they see it. So some of these improvements were, although Eagle put it as a contingent, we knew that operationally, in order for us to meet a permit, which they give us every 3 years, we would have to do some improvements to effectively treat all of that potential capacity we would have. So these improvements are twofold. One, it achieves our overall goal of gaining capacity. Two, is to replace the 40-year-old equipment.
That's, okay.
All this equipment that we are replacing is original to the facility. So when we go, the big key when I spoke to our board members is we have to get in the design process to really hammer down this cost estimate. Once we get really into the nuts and bolts, measuring things out, seeing how they fit, look for innovations in different materials and vendors, we might really lower this number down. But this is our worst case scenario. But once we get through this design, hopefully we can look for other funding mechanisms, as we talk about infrastructure plans coming from the federal government, et cetera. We need to be ready to strike when the iron's hot, and then evaluate how each municipality, because each municipality will have a different position and the ability to fund their portion of the plan or the improvements. I don't know if that, does that answer your
No,
question?
that helps enormously. Thank you.
Just to be clear, this document that was embedded in our packet for tonight does lay out the actual improvements and the costs of each item, right?
Yes.
Each one, yes.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
each one individually.
That's-
And most of them, I worked with Moore and Brugic, put that together because, our board members come to our facility and they've all had tours, but, they have other jobs. And so we try to put a picture of existing to what we're looking at in new. So you can kind of see what we're trying to do and what we're going from. So, yes.
Yeah, I thought it was very helpful where, the HVAC unit was $1.5 million.
Yes.
And this other unit was $2.15 million.
Sure, yes. And I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's the feedback we'd like to hear because that's the goals. We'd like to
Very
try to make sure we paint that picture so
But
it's
it's still not an
understandable.
answer.
So some of us do read this.
No, I read it and it didn't
When
explain
is
it.
are you gonna need the money? How far down the road are we talking?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, I don't have the answer for you. What I can tell you is that's going to be an ongoing conversation as we move forward through this design process over the next year. SCUMA board's going to dive into this a little bit more and ultimately have these conversations inside their own municipalities, how the funding will go, and some of that will dictate the timeline. The timeline that we proposed was sometime a start construction of 2023 of some kind. And that's on the theoretical process of getting through design, getting out to bid, getting the permitting through Eagle, and then ultimately possibly looking at an SRF, which is the state revolving loan section, to get that into that cycle. So you got to have that plan because ultimately to get an SRF fund, you basically got to be into it a year in advance. You have to give them a letter of basically intent, they call it. It's a 1.5 page saying, hey, we're interested in some monies. Maybe we take it, maybe we don't. So let's just try to get in that schedule. So 2023 is our tentative timeline, but it can move.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? I'm happy.
And then ultimately, you think through 2025, potentially, we could be
Yeah, I mean, due
improving?
to the size and the complexity of moving through different processes here, it's likely to take 2 years to get construction completed. And just to put some numbers into context, during our facilities plan, if we were to have to improve, say, the entire facility to handle additional capacity, that number was $59 million. So, even though it's big numbers, to put it in context, this is a much smaller project that will theoretically, by design, get us through the next 20 years of projected growth for the 4 communities. And that was our goal, try to make our original investment of 20 cents on the dollar, which SCUMA was built on, the plan, go as long as we can, and try to get it. If we can get to the next 20 years, it looks like a lot of the usable land or desirable developable land will be developed the way it's been going, and then plans from there can move forward. But we want to try to make this asset last as long as we can.
Thank you so much. That was helpful.
Anytime.
All right, new business B, this is the MERS Healthcare Savings. Thank you ever so much. The Healthcare Savings Program.
So this was requested by our clerk as she was moving from her position as deputy clerk into her position as clerk. She basically, as clerk, received no longer sick or vacation time, and she asked if she could basically open a plan like this so that she could roll all of her vacation and sick time payout into a post-retirement healthcare savings plan. Bath Township already has 2 of these plans. Currently, they are utilized by police officers from the police department. One was a police supervisory unit that doesn't take advantage of healthcare insurance from the township, and the other was the supervisory unit that does take insurance from the township. So what it essentially does is creates a group for our clerk to be a part of, and it seems odd, but there can actually be just one up to less than one to several employees that fit into a group. She would be the only one in this group at this time, and possibly ever, unless we opened it up to someone like the treasurer as well to do something similar. If it were to happen in the future, if a deputy treasurer became treasurer, there could be a similar situation where they might need to roll that payout into an investment. So this is the paperwork from MERS. One is the resolution, one is the participation agreement, and then the third document apparently allows me to sign the agreements if you approve them. So these are just on tonight for introduction and discussion. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Can I have a statement?
Oh, go ahead.
The current treasurer's not eligible for this, so it does nothing for myself.
No, I'm not looking at you, I'm sorry.
I'm supporting it for the clerk who came from being a deputy clerk for years and having that, but I have nothing in the way of this sort of thing.
So there was nothing for the clerk. So Kathy never had, Kathy McQueen?
Clerks and treasurers are not eligible for,
Right.
not only
So that's
that,
what I'm
they're not
saying.
eligible for unemployment, they're not eligible for anything of this nature. You
So
get what you
Brenda-
get while you're here, and you get your MERS, and that's all you receive.
So Brenda, as an employee of the township, even when
Right.
she was deputy clerk, received sick and vacation time.
But as clerk, she didn't have that, which is what you, did I misunderstand that?
That's what I'm
So
saying.
when she became clerk, that
So she
disappeared.
would like to roll that payout
That's kind of-
into this plan.
Her money's
I just
there.
don't get any more.
Her money's
Yeah.
there, she'd like to roll over her fund balance and
Which
her money
makes sense.
into the program. Had I came from, a staff position here at the township, as she did, I would qualify for this. But
As an elected
anybody,
official.
that's correct, anybody new coming in as a treasurer, won't unless they are right now currently a staff member at the township, and then they could roll theirs over into it. The only thing that you get as an elected clerk and treasurer is your MERS, providing you're vested, and that's it. You don't get, you're not qualified for unemployment benefits, you're not qualified for any of that
And
kind
I
of
would
stuff.
like to point out, this isn't special, it's just, this is the paperwork to set up the agreement. Anyone can
Makes
participate
sense.
in this. It's just that she's requested it and we're
Sure.
fulfilling the request.
You need to make a statement, that actually anyone that qualifies.
Anyone that qualifies, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let them know it wasn't special to her or
Right.
anyone else, it's anyone that
Right.
qualifies, so.
I have a question for Karen.
Yes,
You're gonna bring this back to us at the next meeting?
I am for you
Okay.
to approve it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
couldn't we just vote on it now?
No.
Seems like, oh, this one you don't, okay. Okay. Okay, all right, so we go to C, the healthcare savings program, uniform resolution.
No, I just covered all
You
three of
just
them.
covered everything that was
All
there,
three of them, yep.
so why are they? So,
One's the participation agreement
right,
that
I-
says
I
she,
got
this is what
that, the
she's gonna
resolution.
put every month.
which
The one's
doesn't
the
make any
resolution
sense, we
that
don't
the board
vote on it
says.
because it seems kind of silly not to do it, frankly. I didn't realize that she lost it just by becoming,
And then one's just
Elected.
the agreement that says I can sign the paperwork when you've approved it.
so, because she's not elected yet, I mean, it's just appointed, but because it's an appointment, she loses it all. So there, to me, there's no reason not to vote on it, but apparently we're not gonna do that tonight. We did it last time, but we won't do it tonight. All right, items for action. We have a closed session. And this is to consider your material exempts from, as you can read this, from discussion or disclosure by state or federal. Now, we also had B put in where we need to come back to make that vote. Is that correct?
Can we provide the reason why we're going into closed
Yes.
session?
Oh, I think that would be an important thing to do. Go ahead, Jason, if that's, you wanted to,
It's to discuss a legal opinion that was given to us
Right.
by legal counsel.
Okay, does that answer the question? No, that's.
Is he in order? Are you gonna allow him to stand over there and interject?
All I
in this?
did was
Being-
say,
being
did we
he works-
answer
the
his
position
question?
he's in, you're gonna allow this. This is disgusting. This is
I
one
know.
more, this is one more
I know,
of your
I know,
lack
I know.
of leadership.
Yeah, I know.
You
I
have
know.
none.
Okay, we're gonna go into close.
So I move that we go into closed session
That's,
I'll
I'll
second it.
second that.
to discuss
Personnel?
confidential legal advice from the township
If you'd
attorney.
shut your mouth, maybe you could hear what he said, because he already indicated what it is. But you're allowed to take and run your mouth anytime you want, all the time you want, because we don't have a leader. She sits over here on the left side of the table instead of the center. That's right, and I am elected and I can do that. And I'm not your buddy, I'm Mr. Wiswasser, thank you.
So do we have a motion?
we have
We
a
have a
motion.
motion. I need a second.
Jason
Second?
and Steve. Jason and Steve.
Okay,
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we are back in session from the closed session that we had, so. I'm not really sure the direction to go in, fellas, so help me out.
You need to vote to come back in.
Well, we voted to adjourn, so now we'll vote to re-adjourn.
You vote to go back to the regular session.
Correct. We're voting to go back into regular session.
I move we go back to
You're
regular
right, you're right.
session.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, it was
Okay, just a minute.
motion by,
Al and Joe.
yep, second by Joe.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes,
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Thanks.
so now it's official. So what's the next step, guys? Do you want to take the vote to,
We sat here all night, we were just making our public comments.
well, you have until 9 o'clock. That's when they, so,
I will move to approve the recommendation from legal counsel,
Thank you.
Chris Patterson of Fahey Schultz. And, no, I'm not. Come on. Yes, sorry, let me rephrase that. I move to approve, I have it written down, so, because I wanted the wording just right. I move to approve the recommendation of legal counsel, Chris Patterson of Fahey Schultz.
is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
No, Paul, you know that. You as the supervisor.
At least to say whether it was, what the subject was.
Oh, I can add. To approve recommendations from legal counsel Chris Patterson of Fahey Schultz related to the legal advice he provided us.
Sorry. I'll second that, again.
She's got it.
Which issues? Pending litigation. That's pending litigation, we'll get an opinion on.
All right, we have a
For a
second. So we need a vote.
We don't know.
Jason and Al. So Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
No.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We will now move to number 15, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, and thank you all for your patience tonight. I wanted to point out, I'm unsure, today was a very busy day with the senior center being back open, but, someone had mentioned today that meetings, committee meetings would be, live streamed, and that's not accurate. We will have our Nest, which is the white camera in this room, will record them, and there will be nothing for them, the committee's chairs to turn on or off. It's an automated system that will record, and then the following day, Taylor is the one that will submit those to our portal so that they can be viewed. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that the board meetings are the only meetings that Taylor will attend, and make sure that they're live streamed. The Park Lake Beach is back open, which is fantastic news. Beach water testing will continue by the Mid-Michigan District Health Department. We are continuing with our yeast diversion efforts, which includes spraying, limiting the feeding. We still have a couple of individuals in the community that continue to feed the geese, and we will try to dissuade them from doing so by trying to educate them and help them understand why this isn't a good thing to have occurring. I probably will bring back to this group an ordinance that prohibits the feeding. That would give us some standing, and it's been recommended by the health department that we do that in order to create a better environment where people are not feeding them and then leading to the situation that we've had this summer. In addition to that, I will be filling out paperwork with Eagle to, DNR, to have them relocated next year. Depending on how hunting season goes, the permit will gather them up and actually relocate them to another body of water somewhere else. I think that's quite common. So, the senior center reopened today. Al, lunch was served to approximately 55 people. We are not requiring vaccinations, which I have a feeling someone's here to talk about, and but we are requiring masks at this time. So it was people were very excited to be back. I think the atmosphere felt very positive. They were very excited, and I heard a lot of chatter, a lot of laughing, and I know they played cards this afternoon, so I think they were very pleased. My last topic is interviewing for a planner. A second interview with a candidate, it's the first interview with the second candidate will be held this week. Chair and vice chair of the planning commission will hold a second interview with the first candidate. And I know that's a lot, but we have two really good candidates that we're taking a look at right now. And Mr. Wright and Mr. Kramer are assisting us with that. Depending on how those interviews go, they may be asked to attend the planning commission meeting and possibly give a presentation to them so that we can get feedback on those two candidates and pick the right one for our community. So, if any of you have any questions, please let me know. Mr. Al?
Did they have to wear their mask while they were playing cards?
Yes, they should have been wearing their masks
Okay.
while they were playing cards. They were allowed to take them off while they were
While
eating,
they're
but they
eating, that
were
was all.
supposed to be wearing them at all other times.
Nothing else? Okay, good deal. Thank you for the report. All right, public statements. All right, there's 3 minutes as it's read. So on any topic.
I guess that I'm Paula Clark, and I'm more than unhappy. I'm disgusted that there aren't more COVID prevention things going on in this township. We are at an epidemic proportion in the state of Michigan. There are senior center participants today who are not vaccinated and who don't want to be vaccinated and will not be vaccinated. I don't even know if all of you are vaccinated, but all of your police aren't, all of your firemen aren't, and you are sending people into my home. They could be exposed to me, I can be exposed to them, and I've helped build that senior center, and I don't think it's safe. I don't think that you can control when there are people there, whether they've got a mask or not, with what is going on if they're not vaccinated. And I strongly recommend that this township take an action on that. I will say I was disappointed not to see any masks in this room when I came in. I will also just share with you that in our township alone, I'm aware of 6 people who have had COVID. One of the bridge players, had it twice and almost died. 4 of our people have died. 2 brothers and one of their wives, and another gentleman. And one of our committee people, Leo Gallios, had a very hard bout with COVID. It's not like these aren't people we don't know. And I believe if the president of this country can require something of his employees, you sure as heck can require it of yourselves and your employees. And I ask that you do that. And then just a minor suggestion for you, Marie. It's my understanding that you should not be addressing your comments to us as the audience, but rather to the board members since they're the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Is there somebody else?
Well, you can sit if you want.
Yes, you can.
Well,
You can
Just take the microphone with
take
you.
the microphone.
I do want to let you know that if you're not going to use a podium, you're not inviting people to talk before you, because I'm one of them. I don't like to speak before a group. And I'm not gonna hold that. You're asking people to stand in front with their papers, with a microphone, and a cane, and talk with you. That's ridiculous. So please, think about that. You are behind the desk. A speaker should be able to be behind the podium. I also am echoing Paula. I've been at my house. Actually, I've been in my sewing room, making quilts for over a year, staying away from people. I was delighted when I heard that the senior center was reopening. But I'm not going to go around on unvaccinated people. So therefore, I'll have to wait until, I probably would have until this variant came along. And then they were telling me, okay, now I gotta get another vaccination, booster, and that's fine. But meanwhile, we've got people who had none. The idea was if we could get herd immunity, we could get through this. We can't get herd immunity, but we could certainly try in our senior center at least. So that's my 3 minutes.
You want to help her with her cane? She's going to make
Did I tell you who I was?
She's going to make it. I didn't know if she could do it.
Maryland, Washington. A very long time resident of this community.
That's okay. Thanks. Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. We talked about the sewer situation, and the Planning Commission should be updated periodically as to the capacity of our sewer system, so that it's part of our planning process and we don't do development that we can't service with a sewer. And I want to remind you that you should at least biannually evaluate the sewer tap fees, because as the capital investment in the sewer system increases, you need to recoup that cost through capital tap-in fees. Thank you. Oh, and I'm John Wright from Main Street and Cutler Road.
Will Tyler White, Main Street. Thank you for the discussion on department reorganization. I think it's a good idea. But there I think you need to separate that into two different aspects. You have a department staff organization, paid people that work for the township. That's all well and good. But then you also have the advisory boards. That's a separate, that's the residents that aren't getting paid. And what you're talking about here is reducing the number of residents, fewer board members, more staff, and more township control. So that doesn't seem right to me. That's why I advocate for the Downtown Development Authority. The DDA, you can have 12 people there, all residents, all volunteers, instead of just 6 or 4 or 5, helping to make all these decisions regarding the senior center and the farmers market and the downtown altogether. That's the whole point of Downtown Development Authorities, DDAs, is to do all this stuff. And that's why over 200 municipalities in Michigan have those. So I think having a DDA, then you have more residential oversight, more people involved, and it can only be better. I should also point out that the DDA offered to help pay for that sewer extension on the food bank project going under Webster Road. Last year, in January, I got the minutes here. I don't know why the township didn't take that offer. Now you got a $3 million bill coming up. And you want to send $70,000 of your money that you have back to the other, that's crazy. And the DDA can be funding all these sewer projects. I should also point out that or not all of them, but a lot of them, some of them. That's what they're provided for. And I also noticed in those minutes that the DDA has approved and spent $250 in January of last year. The audit shows 0 expenses. So, and that was for the what was it called? The hometowns project. And they did a video. I believe Taylor Reeves worked on that. We didn't get the grant, but that was DDA money that was approved and spent, so I believe that should be in the audit. I don't know why that was missed. Perhaps the treasurer can figure that out. But I'm glad you had that discussion about the DDA in the closed session. I assume that's what it was about, even though you don't want to admit it. It does need to be a pending legal matter, so if you don't identify it, we don't know if it is a pending legal matter. So that's why it's required by the Open Meetings Act to identify it. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you make some good decisions in the next month.
Baker State Road. I just want to address the board and thank you all for your hard work that you do. I know I'm not the only individual that knows that, because others have spoke to me about that. So I just wanted to speak up and say we appreciate you guys very much. And the nice audit we had, it's a wonderful thing to see and come back into play this year again. So thank you for all those that contributed, our treasurer and all those that helped him. Greatly appreciate it.
Nobody else? All right. No more public comments. So, board comments. Jason,
Buckle up.
got 3 minutes.
Oh, come on, really? All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to thank our treasurer, our treasurer, our superintendent, and all the township staff, including our former supervisor, in the leadership and all the hard work that they put into ensuring that we have a clean financial audit. That is incredible, our rating, and it came from our auditor, that it was clear. And so I think we have the luxury of having the discussions that we have because we're not focused on financial crises. So thank you. The second thing I want to say is I want to respond to Mrs. Clark's COVID question. I am in complete alignment. My understanding is that all the board members, everyone up here is vaccinated, and that's why I'm not using a face covering. if we've had discussions, and I took them at face value. I've not verified through looking at cards, but I think moving forward that this is going to be an important consideration, especially as the Delta variant moves forward. I am in support of us reconsidering our positions on requirements for vaccination. I know MSU has and U of M have made the bold move of making those requirements, but I also want to do that in a way that is respectful to individuals who may not be able to be vaccinated or have sincerely held religious beliefs. In terms of the podium, let me just talk about leadership. I want to echo some comments about the leadership of this board. The fact that we are so focused on having a testimony table versus a podium, which we've had, boggles my mind, especially when there's very clear learning related to basic budgeting. And so my recommendation, and I will make the recommendation for myself, I would like to get some training on how municipal budgeting works. And I think there's others on this board that should receive that training as well. We should focus on that understanding, not on testimony tables. I want to respond to Mr. White. I have heard over and over and over again all that the DDA can do. I've seen it on social media. I've heard it in meetings. I've had discussions with Mr. White. The DDAs can in fact do quite a bit, but the presentations that I continue to hear is that the DDA's the cure-all can't fix everything. Yet, over 10 years, the DDA has not fixed anything from my personal perspective. And that's reviewing past minutes and the work. There have been minor things that have been addressed, like putting up signs that indicate you're in the DDA district, although people may not understand what DDA means. But in terms of real progress, that has not happened. I will say that the township has made some real progress on a couple different fronts related that will directly impact the DDA, that district, the downtown area. The first is that we've submitted a capital improvement plan for renovation of Cousins Park. I've not seen a capital improvement plan submission, but that is a first good step. The second is that we have formed a committee to go after Safe Routes to School grant funds. This is going to be $460,000 that are going to come back to the township if we're awarded it to improve sidewalks, crosswalks, and the safe passageway for our kids in K-12, 8th grade. We have a partnership with the Clinton County Road Commission, the public library, the schools, our police department, and of course the township. So we have pulled together the people. We've met with the funding agency, the Michigan Fitness Foundation. The County Road Commission is excited to support this. We are in a very good position to go after these funds and possibly be awarded this. This is something that our leadership, our supervisor, voted no on because there was nothing written in the packet. But we're making progress nonetheless as the township.
Yes, I did.
That's all I want to say.
Go ahead, Joe.
Am I next?
You're next.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. You're sitting next to the...
I'd like to thank everybody for staying this evening. I also would like to echo the fact that I am very, very thankful as a trustee to have such fine audit. When you're in the top 5% of the state of Michigan, you're playing with the big kids. And it's a really comfortable position for me as a trustee to be in because I don't have to worry about the finances. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And my phone is not going to blow up at the next meeting because people can't hear people at that podium. The audio in this room is going to get fixed between now and then so that the citizens can be heard. Okay? And that's all I have to say tonight.
Better make it quick, Al.
I'd like to thank Steve for his due diligence that he has shown over the last 4 or 5 years, and how the the great audits we've had for them times. And thank you all for coming. I'll be sure.
Yes, Treasurer, unless we vote to go past 9 o'clock.
Thank everybody for coming. Thank you for your input. I look forward to things becoming smoother here. It's been very hard for the last few months. And I think the podium needs to stay, and I think this board needs to take a stance, and if that's what it takes is board action, I think that needs to happen. I feel sorry for the lady that had to stand up out there and didn't have anything to lean on. I feel even sorrier for our auditor who had nothing to work with as well. I could talk all night long. I try to do the best job I do, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan, you got 9 seconds.
The board rule is that we won't start a new topic, not that we will end immediately at 9.
That's correct.
That's what they
Major
said.
thanks to the treasurer and the staff for the great audit. I agree, tremendous, 80%. I think that also then puts pressure on all of us to start talking about investment. It's not our job just to collect tax dollars and hold them. We want to be protected, but we want to make sure we're investing as well. This is also true of the ARPA funds that will be coming to the township. So I'm excited that we're looking at investing in people. I'm sure there's other things that we'll want to start talking about investing in as well. I echo the concerns about the boardroom setup. I think we need to put a agenda item on the agenda next meeting if that's what it's going to take to conclude that saga. And that's it for me. Great to see you all on our first night back.
I just want to say thank you for being so patient with us tonight.
That's true. Do you have your seatbelts on? Yeah, what you said, Jason? All right. Here it goes. And you can leave if you'd like, so please feel free. It's 9 o'clock. Nope, absolutely not an issue for me. What I ended up seeing or hearing from Jason was the fact that he was concerned with the table, the municipality with, the podium, city leadership, etc. I too, Ms. Washington, wondered how you were going to work, even something to lean on. What I proposed was a table with 2 chairs for people, Paula walking with a cane, with yourself, to be able to come and sit down and speak directly to your leadership, which is what you should be able to do. I know, well, anything doesn't make it comfortable either way, but at least you're sitting and being. This is something that you're talking about having a vote, and that's wonderful. I have no issue with that, as long as you're voting between the 2. You haven't seen the table. It disappeared. Nobody seems to know where it's at. Had 2 chairs, and you had a microphone, so that you could talk directly to, or you could hear directly from your constituents. The podium for me has always been an issue, because standing there, I'm only talking to this group. I'm not talking to the whole group. That's why the table, for public comment. So you should be able to compare the 2. So next meeting, hopefully we'll have the table. Then the following meeting, you can make your decision as to whether or not you prefer a podium or whether or not you prefer the table. All right. When you're talking about your leadership, I find that quite interesting from that standpoint, because your leadership, you can make faces all you want, your leadership in this whole situation has to do with communication. That's usually where it's at. When you don't have communication, you don't have it. I get all kinds of discussion from individuals. Thank you. I'll point my finger so that's known. And so that's always here. This is the only place I have to ask questions. Whether you think they're frivolous or not, to me they're not, but that's me. To you it is, because you all have done this for a long time, other than Jason. Ryan's been here, other than our clerk. Karen's been here for many years. Taylor's been here a couple of years. I've been here since November. No excuse. I give myself no excuse, and I don't want an excuse. All I'm saying is communication is a 2-way street, That's the only thing I had to say. Thank you ever so much for your time and your patience. Ms. Washington, I'm so glad you came. I hope you'll come again. Good. I think that's important. So I think we're going to take a vote for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
We have to have a motion first.
I'll second it.
His motion was to adjourn. I'll second it.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yeah.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
All right.